Hey, one, two, two. Yep, yep.
Aloha. Good morning. I love hearing all the connections and chatter and conversations. I hope everyone's still thinking about something they learned yesterday during the programming. The luau last night. But talking about the programming, Seb and John, mind blown. I hope everyone started their list, their bucket list. I think OJ, if he's here, I can't see anybody. I think his bucket list was hula dancing, and I think he completed it. So OJ, check it. It was awesome. Hey, Saturday was great. Today's Sunday, but a couple quick things before we get started. First, if you'd like to receive your complimentary yearbook for 2026, be sure to go and sign up so it gets sent to the correct address. It's in, correct me if I'm wrong, registration. Yep, thank you. It's fantastic, the yearbook. If you got it last year, it's a great thing to have. Also, don't forget QR code on the back of your badge. We encourage you to use it. Upload your favorite photos to the convention app, and could end up in the yearbook. All right, let's see. Perfect. Whether it's a great networking moment or a fun memory with colleagues, we'd love your help, so please enter the pictures. All right, let's get started. Operational spotlight introduction. One of the defining characteristics of a successful organization is strong collaboration across every stage of the product life cycle, from concept to commercialization. Our first panel discussion brings together leaders who understand the realities of turning great ideas into successful products. You'll hear practical strategies for scaling new products, overcoming commercialization challenges, designing flexible manufacturing processes and equipment, and balancing product quality with operational efficiency. Whether you're in engineering, operations, R&D, manufacturing, or leadership, this conversation is designed to share practical information. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Reading Bakery Systems for sponsoring this session. Please join me in welcoming our panelists for the Operations Spotlight.
How's it going? Aloha, everyone. This is Sergio Caballero with Food Tools. I've been coming to BEMA for about 9 years now. This is my 9th one. One of the things I love most about the baking industry is BEMA Golf. Why not? Let's do this. Have a good day, everyone. Aloha.
Hello, BEMA. This is Kathy Sargent with Bimbo Bakeries USA, where I'm the Vice President of Baking Technology and Commercialization. This will be my 3rd year at the BEMA Annual Convention, and what I love is the connections. I love connecting with industry partners and experts, seeing great friends, meeting up with global colleagues, and look forward to making many new connections this year.
Hello, I'm Paul Trujillo with Rise Baking Company. This is my 3rd BEMA convention. And what I love most about the baking industry is innovation of products, innovation of equipment, and just the constant innovation even within companies through acquisitions and organic growth. Just always a lot going on in the industry. It's very exciting. It's never a dull moment. And that's what I love about it. Bye.
Aloha, my name is Sarah Chicanos. I'm with the Campbell's Company working on the Pepperidge Farm brands. This is my 5th year getting to attend convention, and I truly love being a part of the baking industry as the work we do centers around food that brings smiles to people's faces and joy into their homes. And being a small part of that is so truly special to me.
Wow, those lights are bright. Aloha, everyone. Good morning. I'm excited to be up here with these panelists. And one of the things we were talking about how you go from R&D and you go into commercialization, and sitting here with them and talking about everything and learning about what they do. One of the things that comes up, what are the best practices from R&D to engineering team to putting it into the production floor? And I mean, we get to learn a lot about what these people do every single day and everybody. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to learning more about this and see where this goes. So one of the big things, go ahead, Esteban, I know you're going to say something. One of the big things is we have co-manufacturing up here and we have private label. So there are two different aspects of what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And Roskin, we're co-manufacturing with private equity owned. So our speed is a little bit different. One of the challenges that we have is we don't have a whole lot of information up front. So specifications are scarce a little bit. And then we don't handle what the customer wants. So for us, it's very important to be aggressive. And what I mean aggressive is we have to be disciplined with engineering. We have to be disciplined with project management, engage research and development from our side, the customer side, very quickly, and then be flexible to innovate as things are progressing. So that's kind of the key for us is flexibility, but also be very careful in project management and engineering.
And I can build on that. I come from Bimbo Bakeries. We're pretty big. So with that comes a lot of complexity, but a lot of opportunity as well. So I think when we think about successful partnership, it even starts somewhat at how we organize our structure. So I lead a team that's called Baking Technology and Commercialization. And it's just that. We're kind of an operations team that bridges feasibility to marketing, scale up in partnership with R&D, and then how does that really impact the bakeries? So it starts with that structure, but then we also have some best practices in how we capture that knowledge. So we do typical project debriefs. I think they're very important, but we take it to the next level of even looking at global design and how do we document what the best product and the best design would look like. So we do that both for the product and capture that globally and for the engineering process itself and the equipment. But I think even beyond that is what do you do with it? So structurally, even under my team, we have training. So technical training sits with our group as well in operations. And it's how do we capture those learnings, that knowledge, that so much of our industry right now is tribal knowledge. It's individuals that have been in the organizations and the companies for so very long. But the new associates are different. They're changing rapidly. How do we train them rapidly? So it's taking those models, pressure testing, using them against how are we producing today, thinking about how we use that for training and the next generations as well.
Thank you. Paul, you got anything?
Yeah, so kind of like what Stefan says, we're more of a wholesale bakery. We're not CPG, we don't have a brand. So we actually do what our customers would like. You know, we're pretty well embedded with some of the major grocery chains in America. We reach out to those buyers. What are you looking for? How do we extend our products offering with you right now? We take that back to our teams and we either add additions to lines, vary the product, capabilities on them. So that's basically what we do.
And our approach is very similar, I think, to Kathy's team without the global lens. So at Campbell's, under the Pepperidge Farm brands, our commercialization teams are comprised of R&D and engineering professionals that are more of the boots on the ground representation for those specific projects. But we have other resources internally that are loosely assigned to those projects that the boots on the ground folks can tap into. So a bit more nimble in our approach because we have less of that footprint just being in North America, but still working in those aggressive timelines and still working to capture all of that knowledge and work that goes on to bring that product to shelf.
So what would you say are some of the disconnects from product innovation to line capabilities to everything along the process of making that product or products? What would you say was a common disconnect?
I can say one challenge and often disconnect, it's connected to communication, but it's around speed. We're a room full of leaders here and executives. I will say, because we're friends and we've been connecting, I can honestly put this out here that connectors, leaders are often very strong activators. And activators bring a lot of energy to projects, a lot of excitement, but we try to work on like a 2-year horizon, especially for true innovation. And when you bring in leadership, that 2-year timeline compresses to 6 months really quickly. And it's a balance of how do we demonstrate the risk, how do we communicate the challenges with complexity, especially when new lines are required or new equipment, and manage because the reality is you can share risk, but those leaders and executives, as you know, are also pretty aggressive risk takers. So you have to be prepared for that. And then I think as leaders, we have to continue to think about what is the portion of our project load that we truly can accelerate. Because giving teams permission, excitement to get behind projects is great, but if everything's urgent and important, nothing's urgent and important. So finding that balance with the leadership group and communicating it.
Yeah.
I think to reiterate something that Kathy touched on, because of those inherently compressed timelines on many projects that come across our plate, there's not time and opportunity to invest in capital. So really working with those OEMs on what is the opportunity within our existing infrastructure to make this new product work on existing assets. So being able to integrate that knowledge and expertise on those projects that just inherently don't allow for that capital spend is critical and crucial.
Yeah, I would like to say that we are a little bit reactive, and our world is a little bit different. We don't have good information on the product. We know that there's a need to do something. So we have to be flexible enough to pivot at any time. And then our teams understand that we are co-developing a product with the customer. Many times we are installing lines and then the product changes. And we just have to pivot immediately to just accommodate to that. Our timeframes are much smaller. So we typically see that there's no project that passes 12 months. So when we start seeing that the vendors have 52-week lead times, that's really a killer for us. So it's something that is one of the biggest struggles. Lack of information up front and then being able to flex and then just accommodate to the needs of the customer.
Yeah, so we're definitely reactive as well. It's kind of unfortunate. We'd like to be ahead of that. But again, we typically work with our customers to give them what they want. Getting commitment from them helps a lot, because if they commit to a product, then we could design our line around it. That can be challenging to get sometimes. And so we're kind of in a situation where we're taking a risk, putting something in for them. But again, the long lead times don't help. Customers typically want things turned around in a very short period of time. And when you tell them, hey, it's going to take 18 months to get this, they kind of get cooled on the idea of it. They'll say, well, we'll try to find it somewhere else. So,
Yeah, I get that. I mean, as an OEM, we always feel reactive to you guys. And it's crazy because you guys call us and say, hey, we need this in 6 months. And then we're like, can't happen within a year. I mean, everyone gets really busy. I mean, how much of collaboration, I mean, you mentioned like 2 years out, that's the vision, right? But really it's a 6-month vision. And so how much collaboration are you doing with the OEMs? I mean, any one of you from the 2-year out point? Probably not a lot, but I mean, you guys, I mean, I know I've worked with Paul on a lot of projects, and it's short lead time. So reactive is always a thing. I mean, how much are you guys working with the OEMs and early out to get that going? A lot?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. So we leverage some of you have extensive capabilities in research and development. You have the equipment in place in your facilities. We co-develop with the customer and you, so we don't have those capabilities at the moment. So we want to rely on you. We actually do rent equipment. We rent lines. We take that equipment into your facilities and then try to navigate what the new product is going to be, or take that into our facilities. So we have to rely a lot on you. The other thing is that we are a co-manufacturer, so we have to be cost effective, meaning that we are competing with our customers as well. We have to be cost effective compared to them. So that means that we have to work with you because I need to keep my staff low. I don't have that many engineers. I have to rely on your knowledge and your engineering as well.
Right.
Yeah, we lean on our manufacturers a lot as well, our OEMs, to tell us what's coming up next, what other capabilities can we add to our systems. We lean on them a lot for direction and capabilities.
I mean, you guys buy up a lot of bakeries recently, and how much of that used equipment are you guys putting into place, and moving stuff from place to place,
Yeah, we move more than we would like to because it's expensive to buy new, but it's also expensive to move.
Right.
So we sometimes move some pretty old equipment that we'd rather just purchase new, but again, it's cost justification.
I think there's a new expectation. In particular for us, private equity wants to see results pretty fast. They have a clear goal. With that goal, then the times have to be compressed. And what we're seeing a lot is that we're looking more into secondhand equipment. We would like to then have the OEM participation as well, because we can retrofit equipment to an extent, but we would like to have the OEM behind that as well. So I think that's a new trend that we're seeing more and more. In the last couple of years, we've been executing more of that. But it would be great that if we could all pivot together to say, hey, there's a lot of secondhand equipment out there. We can support that equipment still with a few modifications and then work together with us as well.
And then on new equipment design, how much flexibility are you designing? Are you guys wanting equipment that's just going to run one product, or you guys want equipment that's going to run 20 different SKUs, let's say, and with the innovation that's coming out with that?
I would say flexibility is nice, but it feels it always comes at a cost as well. So as we optimize, it's really important, and our goal is always to get volume up as well. So that sometimes negates flexibility, but we do need to find a lot of flexibility in how to test concepts fast and get products launched into market fast. Even sometimes if they're regional, how do we get full-scale consumer feedback quick? And that's really where flexibility becomes even more important. And it's also where a lot of partnerships become very important in order to try and learn and really understand the consumer.
Right. Are you have innovation centers within your locations, or are you using, I know a lot of companies out here have innovation centers. Are you guys using that to help the process during any of your product development?
We do. So I would say that every time that we develop a new capital project, we are now investing in the tech center as well. So we want to have those capabilities in our place because we thrive in flexibility. We have to pivot all of the time. So we want to have that capability to also try to sell new ideas to the customers. Our role is a little bit different, and we're seeing that the big customers that we had, the 20-year contracts, the big volumes, the one format all the time, that is going away. And what we're seeing a lot is new companies. They're more like a marketing company. We're seeing that they don't have operations, they don't have engineering. We are that for them. So we definitely need to be flexible. We need to start thinking about minimum order quantities and smaller batches, and then have a system that we can have as automated as possible, but as flexible as possible. That seems like an impossible task. That's more like a challenge to all of us right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would love to build dedicated lines, but unfortunately that's not part of our world. So our lines have to be very flexible, which is challenging because it's hard to be extremely efficient when you're making a very large variety of products or sizes on machine. So that's a challenge for us. We'd like to streamline it to a simpler process, but that's just not what our customer base is.
Right. I think that brings up the next point of how are you guys balancing product quality? How are you balancing sanitation and everything when you're trying to run a high rate, or you might have small batch product that's going through? Like, how are you guys balancing when it comes to stuff like that?
I think for us, for kind of tying into your previous question, Sergio, the new product formats and the innovation that consumers are demanding these days, there's a lot of inherent unknowns that come with that related to product quality and sanitation, and how are you going to be managing this in your facility long-term, day in and day out. And that is for us where some of that innovation center partnership comes into play. not only from an R&D perspective, where you're actually getting to explore recipe development and the process capability of your formula on this proposed equipment, but we're also able to troubleshoot and experience what some of those sanitation challenges may be, some of those product quality challenges, what that may look like before we get to scale, before we break into our line time, which is so precious. So those partnerships have been invaluable to us because we don't have any sort of bread or bun pilot scale facility at Campbell's headquarters. So
I think that one of the key challenges for us is that we see more allergens coming in. We see more certifications coming in. We see that there's a wide variety of SKUs. So for us, it's key that our uptime is maximized and our sanitation procedures are kept to the minimum, but being able to make sure that we don't have issues with the quality of the product with the customer. So in terms of what equipment requirements we have is wash downs, easy changeovers, easy setups, and then also being able to provide a solution that our employees can work with, that they can be fast changing over, washing, and then going to the next SKU. So it is becoming more and more important because we're seeing different trends out there and then different allergens and different certifications.
Right. And you guys are obviously identifying the SOPs in that process. Or do you have them fully set into place, or is that something that as the process is going that you're kind of starting to create again?
For us, I do think we're moving very quick. So one way to move fast is we do a lot of testing in 1 or 2 locations, but we may launch in 30.
Mm-hmm.
So having that early scale-up understanding allows us to start those SOPs, set specifications, et cetera. And then sometimes we'll bring the bakery groups together to do hands-on training.
Yeah.
And that allows us to go live in 30 bakeries in 1 week.
That's crazy.
Which is a lot. And I will say too, the faster we move, the more we're finding we need post-launch support. So we have to be prepared for that, where we want to be as optimized as possible and, perfect out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
We also know we're going to have a lot of learning. And once we're in full line production, we can really optimize. So planning for that and not moving on to the next thing too quickly is really important.
We move different, so co-manufacturing a little bit different.
Yeah.
We have, I guess, initial contracts in place where we provide some of the information for the changeovers, the runs, the size, the productivity. But then what we have to be very careful is with the contract with our customer to tell them, hey, we're going to do a ramp up, and in 2 months, we're going to talk again.
Right.
We're going to talk about labor, we're going to talk about cleanability and changeovers. So it's a little bit different because we don't have that luxury to plan out so far. Right. We have to be fast to go to production, and then we'll pivot from there.
Yeah, so we don't have pilot plants. We have R&D centers across the country where we develop the products. We actually, trial it on the lines. Again, breaking into a line costs money. It's time that we don't really have to spare. So we try to minimize that as much as possible. We typically do like a 1 week ramp up, and then the second week we kind of determine we'll be at like 50% capacity. Then by week 3 we want to be, fully operational, which is, depending on the line, can be quite a bit of a challenge.
Right. So and that leads right into the next thing. We look at, what have you learned from having a successful run to what you guys are evaluating, whether it's 6 months down, 12 months down, and what we learned yesterday about AI. How much are you guys incorporating that into what's going on in your facilities currently? I mean, I learned a lot yesterday on AI that was really mind-blowing on how much there is with it. Again, back to you guys, like on what you're learning from using AI with your plants.
So we write now really good emails. No, I felt a little bit overwhelmed yesterday. I was talking to some of you, and I feel a little bit behind on certain things.
Agreed.
We have explored some options. We do have a system that manages all of the contracts. So now we move into this cloud, and then we can actually, with our partners, we can start seeing what are the past contracts that we have had, what is the typical redlining that we do, what are the keywords that we have to be aware to negotiate with them. So that's going now. But in terms of other connectivity inside the company, we have not yet explored that. Training, we know, is a big thing that we need to get to, but until this point, we just have not gotten there. Now, the effort that we're doing is more on a personal level. So I think that's a keynote from yesterday, that people are using AI all of the time. People are not using Copilot. They're using whatever they want to use, myself included, and then we're just not organized. So I think it's important that the company has that defined strategy. What is it that we're going to do that works best for us? And then not be limited to just Copilot or one tool. Just be flexible to be able to create something new.
Right, right.
Yeah, I can add. Personally, I'm using AI the most right now to figure out how to take care of my tomato plants. So, but within the business, there's a lot of investment in understanding how we're going to continue to build. And I think some of the complexity is just taking it one step at a time.
Right.
Because I get excited, and when I think of AI and data, it's like this is a huge opportunity for just massive statistical analysis to draw conclusions and find trends. And we're looking at AI on how we identify differences and variances coming into our plants with materials, et cetera. How can we start to use it for predictive work, which is really exciting about leading indicator opportunities. But how do we find correlations and clusters across formulas in different regions or different locations? How our bakeries are so very different, but how do we create information and insight from that we can take action on, sometimes for savings, sometimes for executing faster or optimizing quality, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. One of the things I saw was like the ROI. So when he made that sheet up there yesterday, and I was like, oh, that could be easily used from an OEM to you guys, and you guys can implement something like that. So again, there's so much to be learned.
Yeah. So I have like two different parts of that answer. The first part is how do we do postmortems, so a 6-month, a 12-month, an 18-month postmortem. But that's more from just a financial aspect. Like, is it performing like it's supposed to? Did it cut out the labor? Are we as efficient as we thought we were going to be? Just to kind of gut check that we received from a financial standpoint what this project was supposed to achieve. On the AI front, an entirely different subject. We have been allowed to use it now. We have Claude licenses, but they're very tied down. So like you could dump in an Excel spreadsheet and say, convert this to a PowerPoint presentation or things like that. But we can't use co-work. We can't interact with other parts of the company. They're very, very strict about what information is allowed to be put in and pulled out of it. So we're still locked down quite a bit, but even the little bit that we do use it is tremendously helpful. But I just wish we could do more. Like I said, we don't have full, I guess, transparency of our numbers in there just yet.
Yeah, I can piggyback off of the two-prong answer approach. So from a technical readiness perspective, our postmortems are a little bit closer in coming out of that product launch time. We do 30, 45, and 60-day reviews, and that's really centered around optimizing those SOPs, those product specifications. So we're still in conversations with and partnering with our OEMs, our ingredient suppliers, et cetera, to ensure that that product that we did scale up quite quickly, most likely, is performing the way we want it to in the facility. And later we see and are able to react to more of the financial impact of this new product on the line. But from a technical readiness perspective, we're looking at it quite quickly coming out of launch. And then related to AI, I will say it gave me comfort that I was not alone in feeling left behind yesterday. I took a ton of notes, and I'm excited to go back to my team and ask if some of these different platforms are things that we've explored. And today we're using Copilot, like it seems many of us are, but coming out of yesterday, it's obvious that that's barely even scratching the surface on what that opportunity looks like and how you can actually leverage AI and really make it impactful in our businesses. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like we're all so behind on everything with AI after everything he showed yesterday. I feel like we need that training every month in order to get caught up to speed. That was amazing. Well, one of the best things that we like to do at BEMA is open it up for Q&A. How we doing on time, Renee? I can't see the clock. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the panelists?
Can you give us some insight on the internal conversations around the clean label movement and also the pressure around ingredient transparency that's coming down the pipeline? I noticed Pepsi's releasing QR codes on all of their packaging. So trying to give us a bit more clarity around that.
I can talk to natural colors. Like we have a whole team working on natural colors, obviously doing a lot of icing. Cake icing is pretty colorful. So we have to do a massive, natural color project within the organization. And it's like I said, taking an entire team. It's pretty extensive because it's not only finding the product out in the field, the ingredients, because some of the replacement for red or the replacement for blue, maybe very limited amounts out there. And we will contract, a natural color source's entire yearly allotment. The cost of it's quite a bit more. It has to be stored under refrigeration. The shelf life shorter. I mean, there's so many different facets to the net. Like people don't realize we're storing it under refrigeration. It's a much shorter shelf life. It itself, the color fades instead of lasting a year. After 6 months, it starts to fade. So we have to put a shorter shelf life on the icing. So it's just a dramatic undertaking. I could only speak from the color side because we have to put in new refrigeration in the plants to store the colors and things like that. So I don't know as much about personally about the ingredient side as I do the coloring side because that's affecting me personally, but I'm sure one of them does.
No, and I think, this is not a new topic, but it's going to stay relevant for a very long time and potentially continue to change in what it means to consumers when they think about transparency and clean label. I think with information availability, it's not going away as far as consumers want to do research, they want to understand what they're consuming, what they're buying for their families. So it's going to evolve. And for us, we look at it by brands, and different brands have different strategies. We look, because we know consumers are not all the same either. We try to have a portfolio to please, everyone. Technically, it does create hurdles on cost, on tolerance. I think as we think operationally and even with our equipment, we have to be sharp operators and we have to be more tuned in and really watch our operating procedures, our gaps, et cetera, because sometimes we do lose some tolerance. We can make great products, but we might have to think differently about how we manufacture as well, because we always want it all. We want the shelf life, we want the clean label, and we want the speed. And that balance can be a challenge, but it's not going away. So I do see technology catching up, both on functionality and cost, but not in all categories.
Yeah, our approach is very similar as far as mindful of who those consumers are in the various parts of our portfolio. We have a number of different brands, and those consumers are all very different, and how they react to clean label or ingredient transparency is also very different, and what's important to each of them. I will say we try to find that unique solution that can cross over those different portfolios, but more often than not, it doesn't work for one reason or another. But we are very mindful of what that solution can be and should be to be most cost advantageous and really cross across our portfolios and please those various consumers. So,
Anybody else?
other questions?
Thank you. I'm Heather with Puratos Ingredients, and we're in partnership with AMF with a pilot bakery. We work with many equipment manufacturers, but that is at your disposal. Do you see as bakers, is there hesitancy in utilizing teams, whether it's the ones I just mentioned or others in this room, based on your own confidentiality or hesitancy to come and partner with us to help you through these issues, whether it's clean label formulation or making sure you're utilizing the right equipment to make your commercialization go faster?
I think we're very open to that. We actually want to encourage that. We want to leverage on that. The way that our projects work is I can include that partnership as part of a capital project. So that hits our bottom line differently. So we do want to do that, but then we have limitations with the customer. So we are always limited to what the customer wants. We can limit them we can do a partnership where we are talking about equipment, processes, that's 100% on our responsibility, but then the formulation perhaps is something that we can't touch. So I do think that we want to leverage on that much more.
And I think for us, we have a lot of great partners that are able to offer really good technical solutions, lab capabilities, pilot. When it becomes easy is when there's that service support component and the technical answer, whether it's equipment, ingredient, or what. Because then we can really all engage and be all in together, and the transparency challenges kind of go away. So having a great pilot or service is fantastic, but it becomes very easy to be all in together if there's a component for your business to win and us to win in parallel.
Hi, my question is, on the operation side, what is keeping you up at night?
Sorry, what'd you?
What's keeping you
On
up at night?
operations side, what is keeping you up at night?
On our side, it's labor. Labor is very complicated right now. We have a generation that has left, so we don't have the technical support that we used to have. All the legacy employees either are retiring or they're just gone from our facilities. And then we have this new generation of employees that they're just moving along different companies. So that creates a lot of opportunities we need to improve in training, we need to improve in the changeovers, in the cleanability, in accessibility to equipment. We do struggle a lot on the night shift, the third shift. We dramatically see that the performance drops down on the third shift. So it's something that we struggle a lot. Now, the other thing that it always keeps us awake is food safety and employee safety. So that's always been there. That's a big concern that we always have. And then as the products get more challenging, as more ingredients are used, you have more chances of potential contamination. So it's something that is pretty much in our mind all times.
I think very similar answer on our side. Skilled labor and training, whether it be internal training that we at Campbell's own, facilitate, and manage, and or leveraging the training opportunities that our vendors offer. The catch-22 is finding the time to conduct the training and having the right folks sit in on that training. So having the right employees who are ready, willing, and able to learn and understand what their job is going to entail day in and day out, the bigger picture, if you will. So that's definitely been a big topic of conversation internally for us, is what does that training platform or program look like to make it as robust as possible and as efficient for us as possible. So.
And I would just echo the same thing that they both said. We have the same struggles with labor, that kind of stuff. But I'd go a little step further and say that in trying to make the equipment, easier to run for the line operators, then you get another technical level for maintenance that we have a hard gap of closing. Because just finding technical people out there that are able to continue to keep these machines running becomes a challenge as they get more complex on that side. Simpler for the operators to use, but more complex for the maintenance people, staff to troubleshoot. That's an issue that we struggle with currently.
Right.
We have time for one more question. Any others? Okay, very well. Sergio and all the panelists, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you. All right. Operational Spotlight panel, thank you very much. Wonderful information. Real quick, another round of applause for these guys. All right, let's take a moment real quick and do the survey on the app while we get ready. There it is. It's quick, it's easy, and it's a great way for BEMA to capture the voice of the member and tell us how we're doing and how everybody's doing. As we heard this morning, collaboration is essential, not only within our organizations, but across the industries. This brings us perfectly into our next discussion. As equipment, sanitation, and food safety expectations continue to evolve, so too does the need for thoughtful collaboration between equipment manufacturers, bakeries, and industry experts. Our standards spotlight panel will examine opportunities for greater industry alignment, discuss where existing global standards are met or missed, the practical realities of bakery operations, and explore voluntary guidance, best practices, and to improve safety, sanitation, while continue to encourage innovation. Before we begin, take a moment to recognize Caperion for sponsoring this discussion. Thank you for investing in education and industry collaboration. Please join me welcoming our next panelist.
Hello, I'm Jeff Schura with Flowers Foods, and this will be my 4th BEMA convention. One thing I love about our industry is that we truly partner together as suppliers, OEMs, and bakers to improve our industry.
Hello, BEMA family. Welcome to beautiful Hawaii. I'm Chad Larson from Mellow Cream Donuts. Thanks for joining us in this important conversation.
My name is Nick Magistrelli. I work with Rademacher USA. This will be my 13th BEMA convention. And what I love most about the baking industry are all the relationships I've built over the years. They've had a profound effect on me personally and professionally, as well as my wife and my 3 children. Very grateful for that. It's truly a unique industry that I believe that we all are here to help each other succeed and grow. And I truly value that.
Hi, my name's Matt Zielsdorf. I've been coming to BEMA, well, as a member since 1998, and as a BEMA kid, I started in 1984. One of the things I love most about this industry is the family atmosphere. I love collaborating with customers and having projects get started from the ground up.
Whoa. Forgot
It's just
the
a
sunscreen.
blur. Or my
It's just a
sunglasses.
blur.
Jeez.
Now I know what deer feel like.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here today, and as we stood up yesterday in the room and recognized who's here today, who's here this week, and the number of suppliers of ingredients and materials, the equipment manufacturers and the bakers, I thought this is the best opportunity to put one specification or standard on each table and have us start to review those. But I realized we didn't have enough tables to even start that process. So what we're here to do, and again, in spirit of the keynote speaker yesterday, is that we'll be better together as an industry. We're going to kick off a conversation about our standards and specifications and have a dialogue about, is there an opportunity to improve that or become more efficient? Okay. So with that, we have Baker and a couple of equipment manufacturers here with Chad and Matt and Nick. And one of the questions that I have is, what are the challenges you face today with our various standards and specifications in your operations?
Yeah, great topic. Well, first of all, Mellow Cream Donuts is an older company, but we're small. I think we're mighty but small. So when you look at like the groups that were up here before, Grupo Bimbo or Rise or some of these larger organizations, Pepperidge Farms, we just don't have the depth of resources like they do. So when we look at standards and we buy equipment, we have to really lean on the OEMs, and some of it, even I was just talking earlier with someone about our staff. My maintenance person, who I look at as my expert in that area, he doesn't even have a food or bakery experience. So we have to have something to be able to ask better questions with, and maybe a standard that can give us, or even better yet, let's not call it a standard, let's even say guideline, a standard guideline that we have that we can lean on to give us some better questions when we work with our OEMs buying equipment. I've worked for larger organizations, and they have their own standards, and I think there's a lot of strength to that. But even within those, we realize over time there's opportunities to improve that, and we lean on other things around that. So I think there's a need. I believe there's a need out there, and I don't think we have a firm perspective on what that looks like yet as an organization or as an industry, because we've never really answered it fully. And I think there's a lot of different opinions out there. So great topic.
Yeah, and it's a great point that we're an industry of large companies, medium, small size companies, and how do we make something that's relevant for everybody, but not prohibitive, perhaps, to some? And so Matt, with you on the equipment side, what are some of your challenges with all the standards and specifications we have to choose from?
Well, maybe for us, the biggest challenge is that we have pretty much anything from mixing to freezing packaging. So there's everything in between. I remember the days where when I was selling mixers, and we had mixers that were mixing dough that got baked, so there was a quote kill zone, and then you had mixers that mixed cream to put on that cookie, let's say, and that did not have one. So the sanitation standards were completely different for those different, whether it could be the same mixer, let's say, but it had to have different standards. So I guess the other big one, and I'm sure Nick will agree with this, it's cost, because we want things to be safe. We want things, of course, we want them to be cleanable, but it comes at a cost. And when you approach the customer with, sometimes it's like, well, that's really expensive. And what our fear is that they sometimes gravitate towards the lower cost supplier because maybe they don't have the same standards. So what we want to see is a standard that everybody adheres to, so it takes that off the table.
Sure. Nick, how about you?
Well, thank you, Matt. At the end of the day, when it comes to Middleby, they've got so many different product lines underneath their umbrella. For Rademacher, it's a European company. So the challenge that we're presented with is when you have your core company being built, our Equipment Solutions in the Netherlands, and then you've got to, determine what's that baseline for the world. You have to look towards, the market and look at all these, and I'm not going to name all the acronyms off that we know, but, it's like, where do we draw the line and how do we, try to build the best equipment solutions in the world, but at the same time, be competitive price-wise. Yeah. So, for the record, we're all part of the Baking Industry Forum. And one of the unique things about our forum is that it's, 6 bakers and 6 OEMs. So when we close the doors and have our little powwow sessions, we take off our Rademacher or Middleby or anybody's tags and we start talking about what is needed for the industry. The reality is, I don't think we need a new acronym. We don't need a new standard. We've just got to pick one and kind of set the bar. And quite honestly, I think it almost has to come from the bakery side and then sort of direct your traffic towards us.
I would agree. And we have many global companies today. You're selling to places far outside of the U.S. market. Each of them may have a different set of standards and specifications that you have to consider as you're making the equipment. I hear that from our suppliers as well. So maybe I'll go to another point of that is, what are the part of that adds the most complexity for your operation?
Well, my world's pretty simple compared to these guys. They have to deal with a lot of us. So let's level set that. I think that, as we look at the standards, one of the team members on the BIF Council talked about it, and they said, look, it comes down to cleaning practices as well. So the processes themselves need to be designed in a way that are sanitary and easily, and I think Carl mentioned it was efficient and effective, right? So meaning we get it done quickly and it's done properly. So we have a standard that we understand. So when we think about this opportunity to refine what we define as a standard guideline, how do we keep that perspective in mind? And I thought that was a really, really smart thing to think about so we can minimize the complexity. I think we blow this thing into something way bigger than it probably needs to be because we all are doing basically the same thing. We're making something people are going to consume. Sensitivity around the consumer may be slightly different based on age group or other classifications, but at the end of the day, it's got to be food safe. The other thing I don't want to lose perspective is, in a lot of these pieces, when you get into that, really lean into the human safety aspect as well. And I don't think that we want to miss that attribute as well, because that is those two components in my, they ask about what you lose sleep over. I think those are the two number one things that I would say that if I had a risk, those are the two things I'd watch out for the most. So although there's a lot of complexity to the conversation, really probably falls more on them because of all of our asks. But at the end of the day, keep perspective on efficient and effective, and also safety and quality. So, I agree. Boil it down to the simple stuff.
Yeah, and we've heard too, in many of our locations, it's a high degree of turnover, and we don't have the associates that have been there for generations that we've had recently, and that adds to some of that. So maybe simpler designs, more consistency with that. At the end, we do want to have it clean, and we want our associates to be safe in our facilities.
So lean principles like SMED, thinking how we do things very quick and with the least amount of input from those folks, because it's got to be easy for them to comprehend it.
Sure. From the equipment side, what is the most complexity that's entering into this?
Well, I think, when you saw my sweet walk-up video, I mentioned how long I've been doing this. And I remember hearing one time from a customer, and they said that no engineer in this industry should be able to design a piece of equipment until they've been in the bakery and tried to clean that piece of equipment. And that stuck with me a long time ago. But, the fact is that when we're in bakeries pretty much every week, right? We're out there and you're seeing more, it's all about this equipment being safe, and it's all about it being cleanable. So, of course, we want that as well. We want our designs to be clean. We want them to be safe. So it really just boils down to, I think, a lot of the guys I'm here with from my company, some of them were part of, riding this last, Z50 thing. So I think everybody is involved. You said it, Nick. I mean, we probably need to hear it from you. And we do when, customers order a new piece of equipment, if there's something that in their standard. And I think in our group, as we talked in our meetings, that we were saying that, you work with different, companies, and you do see different standards from different companies because they say we have to have this, and that's okay, I suppose. But, as long as we're all going with the same baseline.
That's right. Yep. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Nick, go ahead.
I would say that within all the learnings that I've had over my career, it's always, what's the goal? And the goal for all of us in this room is clean, safe food, right? So when you start there and you work yourself backwards, the complexity for the OEM side, regardless of who it is sitting in this room, is that our end user is the bakeries, right? So we're taking the guidance from you essentially, whether that's the largest corporate company in the world, or it's a private held group, or it's private equity. Each one of you has a sort of a traditional setup for how you go to market. So, the game is, the end goal is to take care of the consumer, but our goal is to take care of you, and then you work your way back to us. So, we're a series of layers away and a variety of customers in a broad stroke reach of who we try to do business with, to be able to come up with some standard that applies, right? And again, going back to that competitive solution, and if you work your way back to the first, the spotlight earlier, listening to Esteban talk, and you're talking about private equity and speed to market, well, that segues right into this discussion. Like if you put a bigger spec at the OEM, regardless of anybody in this room, and it's a big one, we might spend an extra month chewing on it. We might have to, send our resources to figure out, what it is to apply to that spec. The costs go up and the lead times extend. So, when we're all in it together, if there was a standard, I think you'd kind of filter some of that out. I think it'd make for a much better situation for all of us.
Sure. So some minimum that we could all use and, comply with the various audits that we have. We have a BRC audit. We may have specific customer audits that look at things differently. OSHA may come in and look at something differently, and who knows what they're looking at in terms of a standard and specifications, or all of them. Yeah. So there could be a good minimum that we should maybe consider as a group. And then the next question I have for the team is, we sound like there's some challenges there. We have some complexity with what's available to us today as an industry. Maybe where is there an opportunity, do we think, to have some more efficiency in that? And Chad, maybe on your side, what could become more efficient for you or for us in the industry as we think about this?
Well, I'm gonna start off with a little bit broader stroke topic. I think we all understand what it looks like to try to keep a safe work environment for our team members, and how complex That can be through the CFRs. And I think if anybody knows me, they know my trust of government and my position on that. I don't want them involved. So I think we as an organization or as an industry have to come together and say, what can we do to try to keep them at bay so they don't think they're smarter than us? Because Lord knows, I don't think Eric's in the room, but Lord knows the people in DC are not smarter than us. I promise you with every ounce of my being, they are not. So what we want to do is make sure that we don't let that door open where they come in and try to make us bow to what they think we need because they don't know. They're actually ignorant to it. So as these guys said, we're in our bakeries every day. We know what we need. So I think as we look at the opportunity to simplify and align, that becomes critical for us to stay ahead of that curve so they don't think they need to step in and take care of us. We're one major food safety incident away, whether it's bioterrorism or something crazy off the wall, or just a simple misstep by an organization that causes some mass problem. They'll think they need to step in and solve problems for us, and that we don't want. So we need to come down with some standard requirements that hold ourselves accountable as an industry to ensure that we don't get in that position. So, and I think that when we look at each other around the room, we all do the same thing. We think we're unique flowers. We really aren't. We're all pretty much doing the same stuff. Maybe just different scale, maybe just different a little bit, product lines, and maybe somebody has some uniqueness to it. But at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing. So I think we have the opportunity to have a common voice, even though we aren't on the same side of the table necessarily when we're selling. But we need to get together and figure this out. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So a little call to action on that. But that's really my thought on that.
Great, thank you, thank you. Matt, how about for you? Where's some opportunity to simplify?
It's funny that when we sat yesterday, I'm going to give a tireless plug to our AI session yesterday. I thought about the fact that we have these standards out there, whether it's ANSI, Z50, it's these other things. Has anybody ever taken these things and plugged them into AI and asked it to simplify it? I guess you have, right? And I haven't done that, but I'd be really interested in seeing what does it sell us? I mean, because if you cross it over, it's not just, you guys say it, you have OSHA requirements, and when we sell in California, there's Cal OSHA. When you sell into Canada, they have their own safety spec. And when you sell, so there's all these different things. And if we plug all that in, what does it tell us if you say, can you give us, the simplified version of this? I'm curious. I'd love to see that published.
All right. Nick, and for
you? That's good. And to build off a little something, that started in our closed room session the other day with Chad, it's like, let's keep the government out, right? It's like, at the end of the day, there's a lot of incredible people in this room and in our industry, and, we have the power and the control to streamline this whole situation and control the controllables, right, in our life. So, one of the things for me, being more of a commercial guy working alongside brilliant engineers and scientists is, I think as an industry, sometimes, with all due respect, we tend to complicate things, right? And when you create a lot of these different possibilities and a lot of these different layers, that really becomes polluted in a certain way. And then there's where's the target? So, for me, the goal would be to, and Jeff spearheaded something like this, which is phenomenal from a great position in the industry. It's like grab something, use something as a starting point, and just start cleansing it out a little bit. Just start sifting it through, start seeing some of those basic principles that we're all striving for, and I think that will give us a little bit cleaner approach than to try to every single time figure out what the heck it is that you guys are looking for before we build equipment.
Yep, that's fair, especially now as it's a global supply chain of equipment and shipping components in and assembling equipment and then trying to manage running it and maintaining it in our facilities. I do know that years ago that started as an industry is just what you said, Chad. We wanted to make sure that we together worked through those and made sure what was important to us as bakers, suppliers, equipment manufacturers before someone came in and told us, because they don't know baking. Right? They might know regulations and other things but that's how it started many years ago is what I've learned. And it's been updated throughout time and things are changing and there's some new things out there. And that's where I think there's some opportunity to revisit what that core fundamentals of the baking industry were, at least in the US, was how do we get ahead of this? How do we make sure we're doing it and someone's not doing it to us? And that partnership and collaboration that we have And that better togetherness that we talked about earlier, that's what we're looking for. And wanting to see some feedback, if you're seeing the same or feeling the same thing in your pieces of this, and want to join us and say, where should we go as an industry? We'd love to hear from you. Okay. So then the question is, as an industry, and I've obviously shared my thoughts here, but where should we go and what are some options for us? We talked about BIF. This is a great opportunity and a great team to bring those folks together. Maybe we need some suppliers in there. We just need to think about, how could we do this and what are some thoughts that you may have?
Well, I think, it was really empowering listening to the group sitting in there, the BIF group, behind closed doors. We've had several dialogues on it. I was on a call and then one in person here. And I think we're getting closer and closer to having a common thought process on this. I think at first it was very, very spread out. And the funny thing is I was a little bit surprised at how resistant some of the bakery folks were around it. And it's not because they're resistant to it, it's just because there really is a need for it. And I think as we got further down the path, I think everybody realized there is something there, but what is it? And how do we engage in that? And we want to make sure that whatever we do, we get everyone's voices there. And I think the call to action is going to be that if you have any interest in this, you should start the conversation internally and then bring it to whomever you can as far as the BIF Council or through Jeff and what he's going to present here in a little bit as far as how to engage with it. We've got to step up and say what we think, because if we don't and we just let it ride, we're going to ride whatever wave comes at us, and that's probably not a good plan. So I think if you have an opinion, which I'm sure everyone in this room does, you should step up and make sure you get your voice heard.
Matt?
Well, somebody used a lot of acronyms out there. We don't need another one, but there's, we do have BEMA, we have BIF, we have ASB, we have ABA, we have all these things, and I feel like in the years I've been in this industry, the collaboration between those associations has gotten so much stronger. So to continue this, not just at BEMA, not just at BIF, but throughout those organizations, and I think this came originally through ASB, right? So let's continue doing that because it gives us more opportunity through the year to meet and have a lot more people involved than just the BIF.
Nick?
Thanks, Jeff. I think the good news is there's a lot of talent in this room. There's a lot of great leaders in this room. I've done this for a long time, and that's really the blessing of being in the baking industry is being surrounded by the type of people that are in this room. But the challenge with that is, we all are busy people. You're busy with your day-to-day activities. You're busy with, some personal things, your families. And, as I get a little bit older, I recognize that, it's so cliche, but, time is still our most precious asset. So when we look at something like this and we all want the same thing, it's really about focus. So the question is, if we're going to select a small group such as BIF, and we've targeted it and we've aimed at it, can we build off the momentum? And that's the reason why we took it to convention is we wanted to, bring it up to the surface, get the feedback from the broad group, and then at the end of the day, hope that some of you in this room are influenced and inspired enough to say, hey, I want to be part of that as well, and gravitate towards the guys on the stage today and the gals in the room that are also affiliated with this group and say, hey, listen, I could be helpful there. So, I think it's about focus and it's about momentum, and that's what I think we should be thinking as an industry. Can we do this together?
Great. I would agree. And I would add, as I think through some of the ones we have today, the people safety standard, the food safety, hygienic design that we have, I view that as not intellectual property. That's the base for our industry. And if we think about it maybe in the context of what is that minimum that can apply to all scales? And maybe that will clear that roadblock of, well, we don't want this, or it's too much, or it's too complicated, but kind of go back to what's a good baseline to start?
Yeah.
And how do we think about that differently?
I think of another thing is I always talk about Deming, and when I look at lean and the cost of quality, there's no cost of quality. I think we have to put back to some of the things that were mentioned earlier from the OEMs was regarding the cost of this process. And I think we need to be a little thoughtful around that and cautious to think that's going to be a hurdle we have to overcome, because if we're all living to the same standard or holding each other to the same standard, that becomes a baseline and it becomes kind of the ante to stay in the game. Now, when you ask for something above that, which some larger organizations or even smaller organizations may ask for, well, that's a different perspective, different conversation. But I think the cost of quality, we need to be clear, is it's important.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Agrees for the whole industry.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Okay. So just a reminder, and again, we're not here to talk about any one specific thing or saying that there's a solution for us. We want to start this conversation again or continue it because I've heard it. We've all heard it. We talk about it frequently. ASB just finished publishing the Z50.1, the revised version, which many of you participated in that process. Z50.2, the hygienic design standard, is now starting the renewal process. And the expectation is probably over the next 3 to 5 years to do that and gather that information. If you are interested, please feel free to scan this. And there's just starting a committee of experts in the room and in the industry to help with that. So there's a little bit there from the ASB side. Okay. And then it's for a nomination for that committee. I think the other one is through this meeting, the Z50.1 is available for everyone that's attending today. So if you haven't seen it, take a look at it. It's what's adding complexity and what's helping us in the industry. That's just one example, but that's available for everybody attending today as well.
Yeah, it's in the app.
Yeah,
It's in the app. So if you look in the app, you'll find that.
Okay.
Do any questions out there? Do we want to take
Yeah,
questions?
any
We have a little
questions
extra
from the
time.
audience?
Sure.
Okay.
Let us know who you are because we really can't see you.
Jason from Puratos, Jason Tucker from Puratos. But
Jason.
My question is actually, I was sitting here posing like, should I ask, but where can you see the ingredient suppliers helping to partner? Because obviously what we bring to the bakers, but also what ends up on the line has an impact on the sanitary, whether it's like we mentioned, so we were talking about colors earlier, like that have what transfers to belts. Where do you see us being able to partner with you guys to help drive this forward?
I can give some thoughts there. As you think of sanitary design, what are the things that we worry about? The physical risks that's out there, the biological risk, and the chemical risk. And how do we clean those? Or how do we make sure that that's not part of the product? And so as you think about the new formulas and allergens or colors, how do we clean those? And how do we have equipment designed so that we can do it, properly and in a time frame that makes sense for our team members? So there is an involvement for sure on the suppliers, especially today with what's happening in all food. What else do we need to look at? And what are those opportunities? And how do we think about making sure that doesn't become an issue or an allergen carryover?
Well, I think I'll take it a step further. You're making food. So if you really get right into the nuts and bolts of it, you're making something goes into food. So essentially you're making food. So anything you buy for your equipment to process the materials that are going to go into the bakery have to be held to a similar or same standard. Because at the end of the day, if they're not, then that causes a potential risk for one of the 3 contaminants that Jeff mentioned. So I don't think you're exclusive to this because you're just selling into the bakery. I think you're just right in the mix with us bakers, frankly. So you're part of the process stream.
Well, and I'll add to that, at the end of for me, I think of one word here. It's like awareness, right? So as the market becomes more aware of what goes on in the bakeries and goes on in these processes, I just look to my children that are just, when they could grab their phone and there's so much information that it's accessible, they want to track what they're eating and where it's coming from and how it's processed. So, all the ingredient companies out there, you're the what's coming in, it's processed on my equipment, but it's in these gentlemen's bakeries. And I think it's very important that you guys, sort of play on the same level as all of us and make sure we do this right.
Good question, though.
Hey, guys, I have a question for you. As you guys alluded to, as we all know, or most of us, I think, know, the bakery industry does have the 2 ANSI standards, Z50.1, Z50.2, safety and sanitation, respectively. What I'd like to know is, are any of you guys referring to that and using that in either the production of your equipment or production of your products? And for Matt and Nick, is anybody today actually including those standards as part of their POs?
Well, I can speak a little bit to that. I know that as an ASB board member, we get to see the BEAG, which uses the ANSI 50.1 standard. There is more participation and actually even a little bit of uptick in traction around that recently. So I can't speak to the volume and how many people there are in general, but I think that there is some interest in it, and we're seeing it. And we just see that through the transactional aspect of the organization. So I can speak to that, but the rest of it, I don't know for sure. You guys might be better.
I mean, clearly, you get a PO and then attached to that a lot of times, especially with the bigger companies, you do get a design spec. And I know that's Dave. I can't see you, Dave, but I know your voice anywhere. So Dave's out there. But, I know that you do, and I can't speak to whether or not it's actually, cut and paste from the Z50.1, but a lot of it does talk about the, and those of us that get POs in this room, we see a lot of that, I'm sure.
Well, I don't, and it's a good question, Dave. I don't think we necessarily see, ANSI C50.2 that shows up in a PO. But when we look through that spec, a lot of times, hopefully we get it before the PO is issued. So, because then the changes are going to come a little bit. But at the end of the day, when we see what the spec looks like, we could interpret it where that origin was, right? So if you sort of follow the breadcrumbs, you could say, all right, that person must have, or that group must have, leaned in one of these directions. So then it allows us to kind of interpret things, looking at it through that lens. But, I don't think that we're seeing the acronyms pop up on the purchase orders, not too often anyways. On our side, we'll try to establish in just some of our boilerplate text in the quote, this is sort of who, whether it's E-hedge or whatever it is, this is the standard that we follow, and these are the org-line conditions that we operate within. And then in a certain way, sort of rely on the bakers a little bit to also, investigate that and research that a little bit and say, all right, here's where they stand before we, start digging in and, finding our way through this. But hopefully we see it before the purchase order.
And I think, it was just as you were saying that, Nick, you might see that spec, but if equipment's, manufacturers are using that spec, you might be told that you need 6 inches of clearance. But then you get a PO from somebody who says, no, I need 18 inches of clearance.
That's right.
So that's what I was getting at when it comes to, these things cost money. If you're gonna, okay, well, we designed it to 6 and now you need 12 inches taller so you can do whatever you need to do. That's fine, but just understanding that. But I would say Nick, you agree that you get more of that. You get more of, well, I know that's what is considered standard, but we need something better.
Yeah, and that's what I've learned as well. So we are attaching some of those standards in some POs, but then we also hear the manufacturers are working with several others as well, and that there's some opportunity there, I think, for simplification of some of those things. It can be very confusing, and could add time, could add cost, and so that's why we were having this discussion. Is I believe there's opportunity to take a look at that. How far we get, given all the different things that we do and where we have facilities around the world, that's something that we need to consider.
Yeah. This is Terry Barch with AMF. I'm right in the middle, Jeff. So I don't know if it's more of a question, but maybe some comments. Jeff, you mentioned audits, your equipment audits. I don't think in my whole career that we as an equipment manufacturers understand your audits. And Nick said we need feedback from the bakers. Some of the feedback is, where are your, how are we doing on your audits? I mean, I know it's a number of different people, equipment, but there's some feedback that from an equipment side would be very helpful. Even understanding, I don't understand, I've never been part of an audit. I don't know, as an equipment manufacturer, if we understand all the audits. So, I think that could be an opportunity. You're asking for opportunities, and I think that's one. Another comment is, again, you were going down the line of talking about, how we all, we talked about these standards and all that sort of stuff. There's a little bit of a movement in the industry right now from a collaboration standpoint where we as organizations are starting to work together and be part of this collaborative effort. And there's kind of an avenue there to try to come up with a standard, like I said, a minimum standard for sanitation, a minimum standard for safety and all that, because we all got the same goals. And like you said, Matt, that's an option. It's built to it's built to one standard. We all have to have a standard. And then if a company wants a different standard, yes, it comes at a price, absolutely. So again, I guess my question for Jeff and Chad is, how could we get feedback from your audits and that you guys go through? Is that and how often is an audit? Is it a yearly audit? Is it I don't know. So anyway.
It depends on your business. It could be weekly and so, right? Depending on who's your customer.
Yeah, customers, yeah.
And your own internal third-party audit. So that's great feedback. And a lot of times with audits, it's the audit you saying, what are you supposed to do and how are you going to do it? And are you doing that? And you can come and be part of the audit. Those are always little tense moments for some of us as we have. But essentially I think there's opportunity for that standardization. Because again, it's what we said we're going to do and are we doing it that way? And when it comes down to a sanitary design and cleaning a machine and making sure any of those potential contaminants are away from the product, then we can probably more or less come to a common thing of this is what we say as an industry we're doing for this type of equipment. And then we do it. And that's the audit piece of it. Are we actually doing what we say? And so those are some of the things, but it's different customers, different agencies, different regulatory agencies, our own third-party teams working for us. So there's, again, some simplification there or some efficiency, I think, that can be gained. But again, they're separate parties for us.
I think auditing it's an interesting game. I've loved it. I've done it my whole career, going 30 plus years. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. GFSI now is the new standard benchmark that most of us live by, whether it's SQF or BRC or IFS, one of those, standards. But I look at it as a story. When the auditor comes in, they're not looking they don't generally walk in with this preset thought process of this is how they have to do this. They usually walk in and ask you how you do it, and then follow up, do you do what you say you're going to do? So, and I always look at it as a story, and not like a fishing story, because if you've ever been around me, you'll know I can tell a good tale. But it's really a walk through a process of steps, and it's a story that you're telling of how you're making a safe product. And if the story starts with something foundational, like a standard that we buy our equipment to, that gives us a better perspective on how to do it effectively, and then we live to that through the practices that we do at the application side when we're actually cleaning the equipment and breaking it down and doing what we need to do to make sure we ensure safe products. I think that tells part of the story for us. So the feedback to the OEMs on that is just be part of that story and give us a standard that we can live with. Because like I said, we're not all big companies, so we don't all have that depth of experience or depth of resources that we can provide to you that we're going to have. Here's our standard. Some companies just go by what we have out there in the industry. So that's a great question, and I think there's a further dialogue around that, but engage in this part of the process and you'll be able to have a voice to that as well and be part of our story.
Agree.
Well, thank you to all the panelists that contributed to the conversation. Thank you specifically to Jeff and Chad for bringing this important topic forward and starting the conversation, raising awareness. I think it was a very active conversation and what we wanted to happen today. So thank you very much. Let's give all of our speakers a round of applause. We'd also like to thank Coperion one more time for sponsoring this session. And at this time, we will take a morning refresher break out in the courtyard. Thank you, Gia. We will meet up right back in here at 11 a.m. for an IBIE Spotlight you will not want to miss. Welcome back. We are going to turn our attention to one of the most important events for our industry, and that is IBIE. It's hard to believe that it's already been several months since the fun and success of IBIE 2025. And while many of us are still reflecting on the innovation and the energy from that show, planning for IBIE 2028 is well underway. To share an update on where we've been and, more importantly, where IBIE is headed, it's my pleasure to welcome Chairman of IBIE 2028, Alan Wright, to the stage.
Thank you, Emily, and aloha. Good morning, everyone. Everybody awake out there? I can't see anybody, but it's hard to believe that it's already been several months since we gathered in Las Vegas for IBIE 2025. When I think back on that week and reflect, it's the connections, it's the energy, it's the innovations, it's the conversations happening in every aisle, in every education session, and in every booth. It was another reminder that IBIE continues to be the place where the global baking industry comes together to learn, to connect, and to move our industry forward. But before I talk about where we're headed, I'd just like to take a moment to celebrate IBIE 2025. More specifically with this audience, BEMA at IBIE 2025. In addition to supporting the overall operations of IBIE, BEMA visited every member booth every day of the show, and that's something to celebrate. Take a look. Great walk down memory lane there. But now it's time to plan for 2028. IBIE continues to be the largest and most comprehensive baking industry event in the Western Hemisphere, bringing together thousands of baking professionals, hundreds of exhibiting companies, world-class education, dozens of competition, demonstrations, and innovation, and it's all under one roof. Every show gives us something to celebrate, but it also gives us something even more important: insight into how we can make the next show even better. And that's exactly what the committee has been doing. Shortly after IBIE 2025 concluded, the IBIE Executive Committee, the board, the staff, and our partners began an extensive strategic planning process. We've analyzed attendee data, we've gathered exhibitor feedback, we've focused on industry trends, we've identified emerging opportunities to ensure that IBIE 2028 will continue to evolve alongside of our industry. The work has resulted in three clear priorities. First, we're focused on increasing attendance. Not simply growing attendance for the sake of growing numbers, but intentionally attracting the audience that create the greatest value for the exhibitors and the industry. That includes expanding participation among key wholesale bakery roles and targeted retail audiences, international delegations, and adjacent food manufacturing segments. Second, we've committed to improving the attendee experience, our North Star, if you will. That means designing an event that is more intentional, more relevant, and more engaging, from education and activations to competitions to operations and the overall attendee journey. Every decision is being evaluated through one simple lens. Does this create greater value for the attendee? And third, we're enhancing our exhibitor return on investment and return on objectives. Exhibitors expect more than traffic. We want conversations. We want qualified buyers. We want stronger connections, and most importantly, we want measurable business outcomes. Our planning is focused on creating an environment that helps exhibitors achieve those goals while ensuring attendees leave with an exceptional experience. And perhaps what excites me most is that this is not just a vision, it's already in motion. Our strategic planning is complete. The roadmap has been approved, the work streams are underway, committees are actively developing initiatives that will shape IBIE 2028. So over the next year and a half, you will begin to see many of these ideas come to life as planning accelerates. And while it may seem like 2028 is a long way off, there are several important milestones much closer than you might think. In the coming months, we will continue refining programs, experiences, and exhibitor opportunities. Then before you know it, we'll reach one of the biggest milestones of the planning process, and that's space selection in January of 2027. That may sound early, but if you're exhibiting at IBIE 2028, now is the time to begin thinking strategically about your goals, your audience, and how you want to position your company for success. Because most successful exhibitors don't start planning 6 months before the show. They begin years in advance. And that leads perfectly into our next presentation. As IBIE continues to evolve, so do attendee expectations. Today's trade show success isn't measured only by booth traffic or badge scans. It's measured by the quality of the conversations that you have, the experiences that you create, and the business outcomes that you achieve. Our next speaker will challenge all of us to think differently about that. Kimberly Hardcastle from Freeman will share new research changing attendee expectations, practical strategies for maximizing both ROI and return on objective, and how you can begin applying now, well before exhibiting decisions are made for IBIE 2028. And before Kimberly comes up here, I just want to say Kimberly has been with our show and known of our show for 25 plus years, so she has a long history. And we're going to let her tell us, but we're really glad she's here on this island, not some other island today, in this hotel, presenting to us today. So she'll share a little bit on that. But please give a warm BEMA welcome to Kimberly Hardcastle.
Okay, and I have to start by saying, if I seem nervous, I am not afraid of public speaking, but I am deathly afraid of birds. And being in a room like with a bird is my biggest fear in life. I have bad dreams about this often. So Mike Goody just came over and whispered, just so you know. So if I scream, like, everybody stay calm. But all right, with that, I'm gonna let my heart rate settle for a minute and just say thank you for having me here, for giving me an excuse to come to Hawaii and be among my friends. And as Ellen mentioned, I have been so lucky to be a part of IBIE and the BEMA community. I actually was with an agency called MDG. Some of you might be familiar with it. The primary focus of MDG is attendee acquisition and marketing for trade shows. And my very first one, I started working on the show in 2005 in preparation for the event in Orlando in 2007. So I ended up actually buying MDG from the founder in 2012, grew it from about 11 people to 130 people, sold it to Freeman, continued on for a few years after, and then a year ago, I transitioned into a role as chief strategist at Freeman. And as part of my responsibilities, I get to work very closely with our audience insight division. And what we do is we field research once a quarter across our vast portfolio of events. So this includes events like IBIE, restaurant, dairy, deli, bakery, but also CES, NAB, all kinds of events. And what we do is we talk to attendees and we find out how they're behaving at trade shows, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, what their expectations are. And we take this data, we aggregate it, and we report back to event organizers, to exhibitors, to ensure that we're all evolving and staying in sync with the changing needs of our audiences. So that's really what I'm going to talk about today. But I did want to start by just telling you all how much I love this industry, how much I love BEMA. And in fact, I love it so much that I nudged my son into an internship, which he's doing right now. He just graduated from college in May and is doing an internship at Aspire Bakeries, and he loves it. Is anybody here from Aspire? I can't see if anyone is. No. Well, hopefully I'll meet somebody later and get to tell him how much Sam loves working there. But one thing that was fun, listening to the panel beforehand, Sam, he was telling us that he got to do a tour of a bakery or a plant, and he said, I was really worried because you know how sometimes when you see how things are made, then you never want to like eat it again. And he said it was exactly the opposite. Like everything was so clean and so precise. It made me feel so proud of being a part of this company, what we were making. So it was cool. All right, so today's session is going to be very interactive. I'm going to give you time about halfway through to discuss some of the topics, some of the information with your table mates. So it just gives you a minute to kind of think, how will I operationalize this? What will I do? How does this apply to my exhibiting experience or my experience as a baker walking the trade show floor? So what I'd like to do to warm you guys up is have you go, if you're at a table with only a few people, or if you're in the back and you want to join a table, or just sit next to somebody you can do these exercises with, I want you to start by answering, oops, I was already on the slide, one of these two questions. What's one thing you want attendees to remember about your company after IBIE? Or what's one thing you've learned or noticed from walking a trade show floor that stuck with you? So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to go around your table. If you don't know each other, introduce yourselves. If you do, jump right into answering these questions. All right, go. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up your conversations, and then we will get started with some of our content. All right, and here, oops, I went the wrong way. Here is our agenda for today, which I'm showing you because I want to stress that this is very much an interactive working session today. There is a lot of knowledge in this room. I want to make sure that you guys all have an opportunity to learn from each other as much as from the data that I'm going to share with you all. And so what we're going to do today, I'm going to start by sharing a first set of insights about how attendee expectations are changing and what that means for how exhibitors need to show up at IBIE. And please know that a lot of the things that I'm sort of referencing as old ways of doing things or what have you, it's very likely that they have worked for your organization in the past. But what I want you to do is keep an open mind, because the way that attendees are moving through events now is different. The way that people are making decisions has changed. So even though I might be saying something isn't relevant or whatever, it doesn't mean it never has been. It just means things are evolving. So the middle part of our time together, we're going to set that aside for table discussions. That's also a good time if you need to go out and take a quick break or whatever. Feel free to do that. After the break, I'm going to wrap it up with another set of insights, and then we'll close with a sort of report out. And I'm going to ask for maybe some volunteers at the end of the day to share one thing that you learned today, one thing that you found interesting, or one thing that you'll do differently as a result of today's session. And I do want to just stress that today's session, it's not about saying there's one right way to exhibit at IBIE, but the goal is really to give you a new lens for sort of looking at your trade show strategy so you can make more intentional decisions now that will pay off later. And with that, let's get into our first insight. And I've structured these around sort of what's out and what's now in. And I want to start with the first one. I'm going to be spending the most time here today because I'm going to be referring back to this one quite often. So out is designing for yesterday's attendees, and in is designing for next generation event goers. And at Freeman, we refer to them as NGEGs, but the last panel made it very clear we have no space for more acronyms in this industry, so we'll just call them next gen event goers. But I don't only mean Gen Z as they're entering the workforce, but this next gen also incorporates millennials who increasingly are moving into positions of authority. They are shaping expectations. They have a lot more influence than they have in the past. So do we have any millennials in the room? All right, love to see it. And I just want to mention, those of you who are at the upper range, you guys are now officially middle-aged too. So congratulations to my millennials in the room. But let's put this into perspective a little bit by taking a look at where the workforce is headed, because IBIE 2028 is close enough that your planning decisions are likely starting now. I know Space Straw is in January, but far enough away that the audience is going to continue to shift before we get there. So by the end of this year, you can see on the slide, Gen Z is expected to represent a much larger portion of the workforce than boomers. So you've got Gen Z, 28%, boomers only 8%. And millennials, those of you in the room, we used to think you guys were like the next big thing, the big up-and-comers. But as I said, you are here. You are in positions of authority. You're making decisions. You're very much in leadership roles. So the center of gravity is starting to shift already. And by the end of 2030, that shift becomes even more pronounced. So millennials and Gen Z together will make up 75% of the workforce by 2030. All of the boomers will be of retirement age. Whether they have retired or not, we don't know, but they will be able to. And again, I know IBIE 2028 sits sort of in the middle of this shift, but it's important to start thinking about these things. And the idea, like, I'm not saying you need to design only for young people, but we're planning for how attendee expectations are changing. And I think it's just important to understand the workforce demographics that are going to be a reality for you. And for me, it's important to understand why expectations are changing. And I thought this snapshot was really helpful. And it's basically taking a look at the factors that influenced each generation as they began their careers. So if you think about baby boomers, they entered the workforce during a period of time that really rewarded stability and hierarchy and institutional loyalty. Gen X came along during restructuring, increasing skepticism. Millennials entered during a period of economic instability and rapid digital transformation. And then think about Gen Z. So they entered during a pandemic, political polarization that we really haven't seen to this degree before, economic uncertainty, constant connectivity, and the rise of AI. So it's huge. And I think oftentimes what happens is when younger generations show up to the workforce with different expectations, there's this tendency for the generation or generations above them to say, you know, they're entitled, they don't work hard enough, they expect promotions too quickly, yada, yada, yada. But a lot of times, the reason why generations show up to the workforce in the ways that they do, it's really a reaction of, a logical response of the things that are happening in the world around them. So I do want to mention one other thing that I find really interesting about our Next Gen event goers and in relation to technology. So even though they are obviously very comfortable with technology, the rise of tech has made Generation Z feel less connected and more isolated from others at their company and within their industry than ever before. So yes, they do research online. We're going to talk about that today. They may discover companies through search, through social, through video, through AI. But does that mean they want a digital-only experience? It absolutely doesn't. And in fact, the opposite is true. So Freeman's research shows that Gen Z sees in-person events as a way to build social and interpersonal skills, strengthen professional confidence, stay ahead of what's happening in their industry, and support their career development. So the takeaway is not that technology is going to make trade shows less relevant. The takeaway is that they may become even more important, but it's important for those of us that are organizing the events or showing up to the events as exhibitors that we're doing so in a way that is relevant to how they learn, how they connect, and how they want to build trust. And that's a lot of what we're going to discuss today, especially the issue of trust. So before we do that, I wanted to show a quick video to pay homage to my millennials, and I don't know if there's any Gen Zers in the room, but for the rest of you, you can see if you can relate.
We need to discuss your quarterly performance metrics.
What?
He said, bestie, he wants to tell you how you've been slaying at work.
Oh, bet. That's actually fire. My numbers have been giving main character energy. All facts, no printer.
She's excited and confident. Her performance has been excellent. She's being honest with you.
I need you to work harder and focus on the synergistic optimization of your deliverables.
He's saying bet. He wants you to lock in and make your work hit different.
Say less. I'm about to be so locked in, it's not even funny.
She understands exactly what you're saying, and she'll focus and be intense about her work.
Oh, that's great.
See? Gen Zs and millennials can work together.
All right, and before we bring the lights back up, sorry, any Gen Xers in the room? All right, we're obviously the best generation, right? So I wanted to make sure you guys didn't feel left out. So I brought this little friend that I think is an excellent representation of our generation.
I'm Gen X, the sarcastic shadow in the corner cubicle who knows how to fix every damn thing. You know, the copier, the Wi-Fi, your attitude, maybe my own trauma. But all without a TED Talk or support group. I've been working since before I had peach fuzz, you know, paper routes in the freezing cold, bagging groceries for $3 an hour while being told to smile more by people who smell like Virginia Slims and regret. I didn't grow up being heard because nobody gave a damn if I was tired, sad, or overwhelmed. You think I ever got asked how I felt about a damn thing? No, I was told to shut up and get it done and keep moving. So I did. I still do. I let my work speak for itself. I'm the one picking up the slack when you're too busy making social media posts or stress eating in the damn bathroom again. I get the job done, and yeah, I'll let you know about it with a side of sarcasm and a sneer. I don't quit, I don't tap out, and for some godforsaken reason, I don't even want to retire yet. Maybe it's because sitting still feels like surrender, or maybe because I know the second I stop moving, my joints are gonna frickin' seize up like a rusty lawnmower in the winter. I'm not rough around the edges because I am the edges, sharp, unbothered, and held together by caffeine, duct tape, and a deep-seated fear of asking for help because why the hell do I need you? So before you side-eye me before being too intense or not a team player, just know I've been carrying teams on my back since before you were born, little one. And if I'm a little gruff, it's not because I'm mean, it's because I've been through some shit and I'm still standing. Now get out of my damn way, I got work to do.
Who else relates like a little too closely to that guy in the room? So I showed this at the IBIE committee meeting, and Jason, I'm totally spacing on his last name, from Flowers Foods, Fry, stood up and gave him a standing ovation. Like, clearly this guy resonated with him. So like I said, we're gonna talk about generational differences and how those show up in some of these attendee expectations. So I wanted to spend a little more time there setting the stage. So that was our first shift. The next shift builds on what we just discussed. So if attendees are changing, if they're doing more research online before they arrive, then what this means for exhibitors is that the booth conversation has to change. And out is here's what we do, and in is why what we do is right for you. Here's what I mean by that. So historically, the exhibit floor was where discovery began. So attendees would walk up and down the aisles. If they saw something interesting, they would stop, they would talk to an exhibitor, ask questions, that sort of thing. And that does still happen. IBIE will always be a place for discovery, but increasingly, some of that discovery is happening before attendees get to the show floor. So like I said, they're researching online, they're watching videos, they're talking to peers, they're comparing options, and they might be arriving at IBIE with a short list already forming. So the show floor is still incredibly important as part of the buying process, but it might just be important at a different stage for different reasons, because it's now increasingly where buyers are comparing and validating and building confidence. So when somebody comes to your booth now, they might not only be asking, what do you do? But they might be asking, is it right for me? Is it right for my company? Is this right for my customer? Is this right for my budget, for my timeline? Is this right for the problem that I'm solving? And that is a very different conversation than a basic product introduction. And it requires that the attendee has a different booth experience and speak to a different booth team, one that's prepared to meet buyers where they are, and we're gonna go into depth on that momentarily. But it is why when you're thinking about your IBIE booth that you wanna think beyond visibility. The booth now gives you an opportunity to influence buyers when they're actively comparing, validating, and deciding. And that's a really powerful moment, because at that point, the attendee is not just casually browsing, walking up and down aisles. They're trying to figure out who to trust, what's worth pursuing, and what products or solutions belong in their consideration set. And that means for you guys that as you're starting to think about and plan for IBIE, that the questions that you want to discuss with your team are a little bit different. You want to ask yourselves, who are we trying to influence? What is it likely that they will already know about us before they arrive on site? What questions are they likely to ask us? What would help them understand if our solution is the right fit? And what do we need beyond the booth to move them from interest to confident? And those questions are going to show up in different ways throughout the rest of the presentation. But the point here is very simple. If attendees are arriving at the show more informed, then your job is to not just explain, but to help them decide. So I want to pause. I don't know if we have the mic ready, but is anybody seeing this? Like, are you guys seeing your buyers showing up more informed? Do you think we're still at the early part of this trend? Is this something that, as you exhibit at other shows, you're thinking about? Anybody have any thoughts on this? Or the generational videos that we just showed? Anything? And I can't see anything, so. All right. Oh, we have a couple over here.
Thank you, Kim. This is great, by the way, as we prepare for this next IBIE cycle. But one of the things I want to ask you is, looking at these slides, we question ourselves all the time. Do we want to bring more equipment onto the booth? Or do we want to talk more about the brand and where that's going? Or do we want to be, that hospitality booth? And I think, 2 years out, it's going to happen quickly. But as we make those big decisions internally, like, where do you see the focuses for this new group that's, getting a bigger say in the way these decisions are made? Which one of those categories are they looking at when they show up?
So that's an awesome question, and I'm going to be going into that in depth. But I do want to say one thing. We talked about the rise of AI. I think you've had sessions as part of BEMA talking about AI. What generation do you instinctively think uses AI the most? Z. You're right. It's Gen Z. Which generation do you think trusts AI the least? Gen Z. Same generation. So they use it, and they also don't trust it. They're not the ones that ever, sent their money away to the Nigerian prince or whatever. Like, those were our parents. So trust is an issue. There's so much AI, like especially AI-generated video that's out there. People don't know what to trust anymore. So coming to trade shows where they can speak to experts and get their hands on products, that's what's becoming increasingly important. There might be some exceptions to that depending on what your objectives are, but it's engineering opportunities for your attendees to build trust. That's what I would think about as you're planning your strategy. So good question. Did you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, so my question's more around, in the past, a trade show has kind of been a place to show your latest and greatest, and you almost hold it tight to the chest until the show comes up to kind of build that hype, that like anticipation. But with this shift, how do you view the balance of putting out just enough to bring the people in without putting all your cards on the table initially?
Right, that's a really good question. And I think it sort of depends on what your strategy is. But it might be that there's things that are done online to generate interest, to tease, that sort of thing, and then fully launch at IBIE, make appointments where they can come see things in your booth, get more information. So I don't know that there's one right answer or one right way, but I think about, or I would recommend thinking about the buyer journey and what role you want IBIE to play in that journey. And maybe it isn't awareness, like maybe that's not where they learn about it for the first time, but where they move from awareness to consideration and what you need to do in the booth to facilitate that journey. Yeah.
To your question or comment about seeing the shift of people researching more ahead of time and how we're seeing that. And I would say it's been interesting over the last 5 years or so how much more detailed the exhibitor portals have become
Yeah.
and the information that we are able to put on there about us as a company, what we're exhibiting, who our contacts are, our literature, our website, all those different things. And so I think that that probably was on the leading edge of that trend. And we've even seen trade shows then where we are connected before the trade show. And people will submit like, I want to have a meeting with you, and they do it through the exhibitor portal. So definitely seeing that shift to other trade shows as well. And I think to this point, it's very important to have that capability where they can connect with us even before the show.
Love that, yeah.
Yeah.
Great advice, great observation. And for those of you, we have one comment here. While we get a mic over, I was gonna say too, for those of you who are in the room who are millennials, what's the first thing that you do before you go to a restaurant for the first time or have any new experience for the first time? Reviews and research it online. Yeah, exactly. So it's showing up everywhere as we start to see more of the new generation, next gen event goers at events. Yes.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, Wendy, because what I was going to speak to was this whole shortlist effort that people are able to have as they think about going to the expo and what they're going to look for. It's almost to a disadvantage because if I go there and I think I know everyone who's exhibiting and I've made my short list, who am I going to skip to make sure that I see everyone? And what opportunities are going to be missed by other people exhibiting because they didn't make it onto the short list. So with these apps that we have access to, it is important to fill out that profile because if there's not enough information, you're not making it onto that short list.
100%. That's a really good point. All right, and we're going to talk about this more today, but let's move on to our next shift. And I think this really speaks to what you guys are saying in terms of how do we get discovered. And this is about preparation. So if attendees are doing more research before they arrive, if they're making that short list, then it's important that we're not simply showing up, but we are showing up prepared. And I do mean this in both directions. So prepared before the show so that we are discoverable, so that attendees know we'll be there. And also prepared for after the show so that the conversations that you start on site don't lose momentum as you get back to the office and then sort of try to figure out your follow-up plan. And again, I know that IBIE might still feel far away, but the point of planning now is that it's so much easier to do when you have time to be strategic and think about these things versus when you're in the final countdown. So this is actually data from Exhibitor Magazine, and it shows how valuable pre-show marketing can be. So exhibitors who engage in pre-show marketing report stronger booth traffic, increased brand awareness, improved lead quality, and better interactions on site. And this all makes perfect sense, right? Because if attendees are planning in advance, then your job is to get on their radar, is to get on their short list before they get on the plane. And yet, 80% of exhibitors do little or no targeted pre-show marketing. This is not specific to IBIE, this is across the industry. So I think IBIE statistics are a little bit better than that. But the other statistic that I find crazy is that 64% of trade show leads are never followed up on. So if you think about it, that is your opportunity. If attendees are making plans before they arrive, and most exhibitors are not doing pre-show marketing, most exhibitors aren't doing anything to influence those plans, there's your opportunity to stand out. And moreover, if your competitors are not following up with their leads, there's even more room for you to close deals as well. So if you revisit this slide from earlier, the buyer journey, whether an attendee discovers you on the trade show floor or beforehand or whatever, the journey does not begin at IBIE. Before the show, you do have to be discoverable. Attendees need to know that you're there. They need to also understand why you matter, why they should put you on their short list. During the show, you need to create an interaction that helps them move forward. And after the show, you need a follow-up plan to keep the momentum going. Because A successful trade show plan is not just about the days of the show, it's about the full journey before, during, and after. Okay, so the last shift was about attendees arriving more informed. They might already know the basics about your booth. They might have a short list. They might be coming with specific questions. So the booth experience that you offer has to do more than just introducing your product or solution. It has to help attendees evaluate. And this is where the research that we've done at Freeman is really, really clear. Attendees want to get hands-on with product. So out is standing and just scanning badges, and in is touching and trying. And badge scans do matter. I know they matter to a lot of you. But if the experience an attendee has is just a quick scan and a promise to follow up, then you're missing what makes a live environment really valuable, because attendees want to be there to see it and touch it and try it and watch it work and understand how it might apply to their own business. Here's the data. In Freeman's research, attendees were asked, what is the little question up there, what's most likely to negatively impact your ability to evaluate products and services at a business event? The top answer was limited hands-on exposure to products and services. And I think this matters a lot for IBIE because so much of this industry needs to be experienced in context. So whether you have equipment or ingredients or technology, solutions, processes, production lines, whatever, I think it's one thing to read about a solution online, but it's another thing to be able to see the piece of equipment running, to see it in action and be able to ask questions and understand how it might fit into a line. And you'll also see a lack of subject matter experts on this list, which we're going to talk about next. But the key point with this trend is that just passive information isn't enough. And I think most exhibitors at IBIE do a really good job with this as well. But those who don't, it has real consequences, because among attendees who did not receive hands-on experiences, 42% said they were actually more likely to prioritize other vendors. So the risk isn't just that somebody's going to walk past your booth. The risk is that they're going to walk past it into your competitor's booth and gain more confidence with what they're offering. And I think this is especially relevant for next generation attendees because they are less likely to be influenced by legacy or loyalty and more by experience, relevance, and choice. So the good news is that our data shows when attendees do have hands-on experience, 98% says it's easier to advocate for the purchase of a product or service. 95% said it's easier to determine whether the product or service is going to be a good fit. And 93% say it helps them become more aware of or better evaluate an offering. So essentially, our attendees are telling us how to help them move forward. Let me experience it, let me ask questions in the booth, and let me picture it in my own business. So the planning question is simple. What do attendees need to experience in our booths at IBIE to believe us, remember us, and advocate for us? This is just a quick summary of how to turn this advice into action. So incorporate immersive activations in your booth. So think about product trials, live demonstrations, simulations, interactive tech. But the key is you're not just telling them what you do, you're letting them experience it. If you don't know how to do this, if it's not obvious, partner with experts who can help you bring that vision to life. So it might be, I don't know, your agency or a general services contractor, your internal product team. But they should be able to help you find answers that fit within your budget and your space and your timeline and that sort of thing. And then the other thing is just making sure that you're training your staff who will be in the booth because the best booth staff like aren't just there to pitch, they're there to facilitate. And I'm going to elaborate on this in our next insight. But what would you guys, just to pause here for a second, what kinds of things do you think IBIA attendees, like the main buyers that are walking the trade show floor, like what are the things they need to see in action to believe? And do you think in general that IBIA were doing a good job with this? Any thoughts on this one? Emily, you can just call on people too. Put them on the spot. Like, they would love that. You're my favorite attendee here. I love when people participate. Thank you. Except Wes got rid of the bird, so you're actually my true hero, Wes. Yes.
Well, anyone in this room that knows me knows I always have an opinion, so
love
happy to share it. I missed a portion of it because you gave me so many thoughts I had to write them down right away. But if I had to think about what decision makers see or want to see as soon as they're walking on the booth, I would say people who are genuine, people who are actually listening instead of just seeing you as an obligation or an opportunity. Something that we at Rademacher are very proud of is that we don't just provide equipment, we provide solutions.
Love it.
Even if our equipment isn't the solution, we know a way to help you, even if it's not us that's helping you. And I think when we facilitate conversations on behalf of our customers instead of on behalf of our equipment, that's what speaks to decision makers and makes them want to stick around on our booth.
Awesome. Yeah, having people that are genuine there. I do think you guys do a good job at this. It's a lot of tech shows that I see where you see the people standing behind the booth that are like, here's some socks or hot sauce or whatever tchotchke they're giving out. Let me scan your badge and I'll follow up with you later. They don't have subject matter experts in the booth, and the relationship feels very transactional, and it feels like things they could have done online. So just think about this, whatever it means to your company, like how do we have experiences for our attendees that allow them to really get their hands on and build trust. And I'm going to do one more insight, and then I'm going to pause and have you guys work at your tables again. So the next one, this is also grounded in Freeman research, and it does have to do with who you put in your booth. So we talked about the fact that attendees are doing more research before they arrive. They may already know the basics. They may have a short list. They may have specific questions about whether a product or ingredient or technology or solution is right for their business. So when they come to an event like IBIE, they are looking for something that they can't get from a website or a brochure or whatever. They want access to the people who really know the product and the process and the science and the equipment and the application. So out is generic booth talent, and in are subject matter experts. And I do want to be clear about one thing. This is not about removing salespeople from the booth. Salespeople absolutely matter. They create energy, they are welcoming, they start conversations, they can qualify interest, they can help sort of move an attendee, a buyer, through the experience. But attendees overwhelmingly want the people that can answer deeper questions. And our research shows that 84% of attendees say connecting with subject matter experts at a trade show is extremely or very important to their event experience. And that's a pretty big number, 84%. And it reinforces that how you staff your booth at IBIE should be a very strategic decision. Because if your booth is only staffed for greeting and scanning and general product introductions, then you might not be prepared for that attendee who has shown up doing their homework and wants to sort of pressure test what they already know. So if you think about your booth more like a journey, I think that it sort of helps solidify it for me, where different people can play different roles. So you might have those like outgoing salespeople that are sort of at the perimeter of the booth, bringing people in to maybe talk to the subject matter experts who can kind of qualify it. Maybe you do, also have meeting rooms for executive level conversations with attendees who are making purchasing decisions on site. But however you staff your booth, you want to align it to your objectives and be strategic about it. And this next data point shows why this really matters. When attendees were asked what would improve their interactions with exhibitors, more than half said speaking with subject matter experts. But when we asked exhibitors, only 26% identified that as one of the most important ways to improve engagement at trade shows. And that's a pretty meaningful disconnect. So I think exhibitors oftentimes are super focused on scanning badges and sending follow-up emails, which aren't wrong. Like, there is probably a place for that within your booth. You do need a way to capture general interest and continue the conversation. But if your booth experience itself, it feels too transactional, then it's likely attendees really aren't getting what they came for. And a badge scan is not a conversation. A follow-up email is not access to expertise. And if your booth is just functioning sort of like a static website, then you're not taking advantage of the full event environment. So again, just to quickly sort of wrap this trend up and how to operationalize it, blend charisma and credibility. So as I mentioned, you want people that can draw people in and create energy, but then also your subject matter experts that can kind of answer the next level question. Second, make subject matter expertise very intentional and visible. So don't just tuck them away in a corner. Think about ways for them to interact, like where you can feature them a little bit more clearly. So maybe you are doing demos and they're there, or you have office hours with them, or ask the expert moments, scheduled consultations, or just internal hands-off where a salesperson can hand off an attendee to a subject matter expert to answer deeper questions. I was actually at an event with a gentleman from Zoom recently, and he was talking about how they will bring in, their subject matter experts can't always travel to all their shows, so they do bring them in, or they have access to them digitally. So if somebody asks a question, they can still get it answered right then and there with a subject matter expert through Zoom. I don't think it's ideal, but if you can't have them there in person, there's other ways to make sure you have access to them. But whatever you're doing, pressure test the whole team with purpose. So make sure everybody understands why you're there, who you're trying to reach, and what question attendees are likely to ask of them, and what's exhibiting success looks like. All right, so I have 3 more insights to share, but before I do that, I want to break so you guys can have a table discussion, and I'd like for you to stick with the out and in framework. So you can go around your table, you can answer these questions however you'd like within the context of your own company. Like if there's something that you're doing that feels out, you can answer it that way. Something that you've seen done at other trade shows, what have you. I'll let you guys read these. I'll give you about 15 minutes, or we'll see how we're doing, 10, 15 minutes to talk among your group about what we just discussed. Based on that, 1 exhibitor behavior habit or assumption that feels out, 1 behavior strategy or experience that feels in, 1 practical change exhibitors could make before IBIE to create better conversations with attendees. So go. Okay, now I'd love to hear what the discussions at your tables were. I did have a few volunteers who I, of course, voluntold to share what they came up with. So let's hear from a few of you. What did you discuss? We'll start with this table in the back. Troy.
Well, one of the things was, I'm Troy Henry with the Henry Group. One of the things was about customers, especially when they come up, we have a tendency to want to go directly into, this is what we're doing, this is what we can do for you, instead of seeking out to say, what are your problems, what are your needs, what are you looking for? And as you dig into a customer, or let them just tell you, yeah, we're here looking for this or that, because we may be trying to sell them a piece of equipment and they may be looking for services. They may be looking for something entirely different, or have problems that it may be that you can't solve. But you have an opportunity to build a relationship or trust with that customer by saying, you know what, okay, if you're looking for this solution, you need to go over and see this customer or that customer. And we've done that many times, but I think seeking to understand them and help solve their issues.
Love it.
That's
Thank you.
thing.
All right, and we have a little focus group here too. Like I'm telling you across our portfolio, here's what attendees want, but we have a couple of bakers at this table, so I shouldn't ask you like a question I don't know the answer to, but tell me, like, am I full of crap? Or like, is this correct? Like, is what I'm saying, you want to see equipment, you want subject matter experts? Like, give us your thought.
Why me? That's interesting because there's no one straight answer to to this thing. And we were discussing here in the table what kind of attracts us when we will go and walk IBIE or IBA or whatever. So kind of in recent times, we tend to go focused on what we're needing, then we need to, where's a supplier that can fulfill that need, right? But if we go that route, then we are missing like a bunch of other opportunities that might be, out there. So, and also the amount of people that we go from Bimbo into the shows, I'm trying to give you guys the back. The amount of people has been also reduced, and again, by representations of the different organizations going to look for what that is needed. So kind of my personal view is try to go with the incumbents at certain level, not necessarily brand new, because you need to work in another set of understanding who is that other supplier, but I'm open to hear and listen to new opportunities besides incumbents.
Yeah. Well, ideally, the attendees are coming with a plan and open to a little bit of serendipity, too, like to discover new things. Do we have another one, Emily?
I think we do.
Okay.
Well, we went back and forth on a few things, just as what's working, what's not working, and it really come down to time management and being able of who's on the booth, having the right resource, whether it be the subject matter expert or whatever it may be. But one thing was the meetings. So on both sides, on the customer's side and on our side, on the OEM side, both are looking for justification to be there, that we're having quality meetings, that we're having quality discussions, moving things forward. But in turn, what that does, you have both that are setting up meetings that's taking up time, whether it be closed off and being able to have. So I think that's one that just to kind of rethink about how those meetings go, what the duration of those meetings, what the expectations, and what could be done before or after. I think that's a struggle, and it really comes down to time management and the right resources.
Great point, time management, absolutely. All right, should I move on? Let's move on to our last set of insights. So, before the break, we talked about how exhibitors can create more meaningful interactions through hands-on experiences and better preparation and by providing access to subject matter experts. But now I want to shift from the interaction to the actual booth, to the environment itself. So in other words, what your booth looks like, what it feels like, what it communicates before anybody on your team ever says a word to the buyers. And at a show like IBIE, where attendees have a lot to see, it is a really big show. They have a lot to compare, and they have a limited amount of time to get through everything. So the goal cannot just be showing up and blending in. So out is blending in and in is breaking through. And when I say breakthrough, I don't just mean showing up with the flashiest booth for the sake of being flashy, but I mean being intentional so that the right attendees, they notice you, they understand what you do, and they have a reason to engage. And again, the good news, IBIE 2028 is still far enough out that you have time to make decisions about these things now. So 3 steps in relation to the environment. The first step is making sure that you capture the attention of your buyers. And I know that sounds like really obvious, but it's not always easy because attendees are moving quickly. They are scanning the floor. They're deciding in seconds whether something is worth stopping for if it's not already on their short list. So your booth has to give them a reason to pause. And that might come through a visually striking layout. It might be like an unexpected structure in your booth, a working piece of equipment, movement, lighting, anything that just sort of naturally draws people in and gets them to stop. And it's not all about booth size either. I want to make that clear. Even small spaces, if they're designed with intention, they can also break through the noise. But the question is to ask yourself is, when somebody walks past your booth, what will make them want to stop? Once you have their attention, the next question is, what gives people a reason to talk? And it could be a live demonstration. It could be a product reveal, a clever use of equipment, a surprising visual, a hands-on experience, as we discussed earlier. But something that makes somebody say, like, hey, did you see what they're doing over in, like, X booth? You want to make sure that you're creating buzz that relates to your company and your business. You don't just want attention for attention's sake. You want attention that reinforces what you want to be known for. So as you're thinking ahead to IBIE, ask not just what would get people to notice us, what would get our booth to stand out, but what gets people to notice us for the right reasons. And that's where booth design really becomes strategic. And then once people are near your space, the question becomes, what are you actually saying? And I do think this is probably where a lot of booths kind of fall short. They may look good, but then the message is too generic, or it's too hard to read, or too hard to like understand quickly. And in that regard, there's a few things that matter. So when you think about your messaging, keep it short. Attendees should be able to understand the main idea in just a few seconds. Make the most important part of your message the most visible part of your message. So think about what people can see over the crowd, or from the end of the aisle, or from a distance, or whatever. And then the third thing, and I think this is a thing that we don't often think about, is encourage action. So your messaging should not just describe what you do, but it should actually prompt the buyer to do something. So to watch a demo, or to ask a question, or compare a solution, or scan for more information, or step into a conversation, or whatever. So when you think about your physical booth and you think about signage, the goal is movement, getting the buyers to move through the booth journey. I will, this is a little bit of an aside, but I do want to say that for many attendees, and especially next-gen event goers, sustainability and responsible practices and values-based decision-making are part of how they are evaluating companies. And I think this is one of the most drastic changes from earlier generations to our next-gen event goers. And I am not saying that every booth needs to have a new, a total sustainability platform before IBIE comes about. But it does mean there might be practical choices you can make, like, can you reduce waste? Can you rethink what your giveaways are? I think that's one of the things that we're seeing across all of our shows, is that the little styrofoam tchotchkes or whatever, they're not super popular. A lot of giveaways now are things that are consumed or are somehow eco-friendly. Can you use recyclable materials or reusable materials? Can you repurpose assets? Anything that you can do to make your sustainability a little bit more visible, but also in a way that feels authentic and not just performative, will resonate with the next-gen event goers. So to bring this together, use bold visuals and clear messaging to attract attendees to your booth. Design for buzz, but make sure that the buzz is tied to purpose. And where you can, incorporate sustainable materials or reusable assets in ways that support your brand story. All right. We talked about the importance of designing a booth that stands out because the booth still matters. Your booth is still going to be your home base at IBIE. It's where your brand lives. It's where your products are showcased, where your staff's going to be hanging out, where most of the conversations that really matter happen. But this shift is actually about recognizing that your booth might not be your entire exhibiting strategy at IBIE. So out is booth-only thinking, and in is total event presence. So think about how your brand can show up across the IBIE experience in ways that support your goals and create interactions and help attendees remember you. Because sometimes I think those important conversations happen after a demo or during an education session or in a hallway conversation or over coffee or what have you. So to think beyond the booth, remember at IBIE, there are so many ways that attendees come to learn and discover and evaluate what matters in the industry. So they do walk the show floor, obviously, but they also attend demos, they participate in education, and they notice when they're there which brands are showing up in helpful, relevant ways. So the opportunity is to create more than just a surface level engagement. You could lean into maybe like lending out your equipment for a demo stage as an example, or sponsoring some sort of educational offering. It might mean creating a hospitality moment, a customer conversation, a networking opportunity, just another touch point where your brand can be experienced in a different context. And I'm not saying you guys should try to be everywhere, but identify the moments that make sense for your audience and your objectives. Because the more ways that attendees can experience and see your brand at IBIE, not just your logo, but they can experience your expertise and your people and your point of view, the better. And this was something, I mentioned the guy from Zoom I heard. He talked a lot about when they exhibit, how they try to think about the margins and using the margins intentionally. And I think that at events, sometimes the most important conversations do happen outside of a booth. They happen between sessions, and they happen after demos, and over coffee, and in hallways, and all the things. And that is where trust often gets built. So, you know, I think you hear people saying, have you talked to this company, or did you see that demo, or whatever. So the question for you guys is, how do you plan for those moments instead of just leaving them entirely to chance? And maybe that means just making sure you have some of the right people that are available after a demo, or having meetings planned with your customers, having a sponsorship opportunity, that sort of thing. But think about the margins. And then the final shift is how we define success. And I do think for a long time at IBIE, we've always talked about success in relation to badge scans and total attendance numbers. And those things do matter, like I'm not downplaying them. But remember how we talked about at the beginning, how attendees are now coming at a different stage of the buying journey. The awareness is already there. I think if we're only measuring lead counts or badge scans as part of our success, we're probably doing it wrong. So doing it right starts with setting very clear goals before the show, maybe even before choosing your space in January. Are you trying to raise brand awareness or launch something new or generate pipeline or educate current customers or defend your key accounts, make connections? Like all of those things are valid goals for IBIE, but they do require different strategies and different ways of measuring success. So once your goal is clear, then align your actions to it. So, and this kind of goes back to a question I had earlier, like how should we be, should we have hospitality rooms or bring equipment or whatever? If awareness is your goal, you may need visibility beyond the booth. If education is, you might need demos, those SMEs. If relationship building is the goal, you may need private meeting space. If lead gen is the goal, have a clear process for capturing leads. But the point is that different objectives should lead to different choices. So start with a clear objective, design with that purpose in mind, choose tactics that support the goal, and measure what actually matters. And I have 30 seconds left, and so I am going to end with a quick recap. I was going to ask for a report out, but what I would like for you to do is to take this information back to your team and talk to them about one thing you would do differently, one thing you learned, one thing you found interesting as a result of today's conversation. And in closing, I want to thank Emily and Alan for having me here and for allowing me to present this information while you still have plenty of time to make smart strategic decisions about your IBIE strategy. So good luck and enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. We know that BEMA members and the entire industry invest so much in IBIE, so the more we can help you be prepared for that, the better off we're all going to be. For BEMA, we definitely want to keep continuing to prepare you for IBIE along the way. So this is the first of some of that BEMA member education to help you get ready for the trade show. For right now, we have an Island Connections luncheon right outside the door. So please go enjoy that. Take a 1-hour break, and we'll be back in here at 1:30 for the general membership meeting. Thank you.